This is how to get started with AI automation if you're a complete beginner. This is going to be kind of a beginner's guide for whether you're a business owner looking to automate certain parts of your business, or maybe you're someone who wants to learn the skills to be able to sell automation solutions to other businesses. So if you're brand new to the channel, my name's Elliot. I'm the CEO and founder of ManyFlow AI, which is my AI development company. And in this video, I'm going to be actually going over two workflows. One's going to be built on Make.com and one's going to be built on N8N. They're going to be very similar workflows. These are just the two platforms that I personally love the most. I think they're the best to use. It's what me and my team usually deploy our client projects on. It's going to be those two platforms, so that's exactly what I'm going to be covering in this video. So with that being said, let's just get into the video. So before we dive into any workflows, let's actually understand what is automation. So at its core, automation is basically using tools to handle repetitive tasks for you instead of you doing them manually. So a really simple example is if you have a lead form on your website, someone's going to fill out that lead form, and then you would probably get an email alert, and then you would log in to your CRM, add the info manually, and then maybe you'd message your team on Slack. Maybe you'd forward the email to someone being like, hey guys, we got a new lead, make sure to log it in, and then let's reach out to them automatically. So that is, for example, one task that you and your company would do, and then automating that is just having it all done for you without you having to touch a thing. So essentially, if you were to hire someone to do this for you, yeah, you are delegating that work to someone else, but you're not really automating the work. You're paying that employee a certain amount of money in order for them to take care of that task. Now with automation, you just set up something once and it runs on autopilot. Like I said, you don't have to touch a thing. And the best thing about this is that you'll set it up once and it'll run perpetually. So now that lead, it'll come in, you'll get the email alert, it'll automatically log it into your CRM for you, and it'll automatically craft the message to your Slack team, or it'll automatically forward that email to whichever team member you want to send the info to. So this is exactly how businesses are saving time, money, and are allowing them to scale so they don't have to actually spend 10, 20 hours a week on a certain task. It's just done completely digitally in the back end. It has been automated. So what makes it so important for businesses to integrate these types of systems into their operations? Well, it's simply to allow them to scale, make more money, save more time, as I mentioned earlier, right? The amount of business owners who've been running their business the same for 30, 40, 50 years, they actually didn't have this opportunity back then, and they've just been doing the same thing for so long, they don't even realize that, oh wow, I actually spend 35 hours a week doing this when I could have actually just paid one person to do it for me, and I just saved 35 hours a week. Instead of delegating it to another employee, I have it run on the back end on its own. And the good news is that a majority of these systems don't actually require code unless you're building a very complex automation that plugs into many different things. Yeah, there might be a little bit of code involved, but it's not going to be one whole thing of code. So this is what makes it very easier. The barrier for entry is a lot easier for people to learn this stuff. Even if you're a business owner and you're a little technical, you can kind of get this down as well. But if you're a young entrepreneur looking to sell these automations, this is a great opportunity because, like I said, you don't have to have a coding background. You don't have to be a developer. You can kind of already do most of these things on your own. And then as you grow your company, as you grow your agency, if it's a freelancing business, if it's an AI agency, you then hire AI developers to do the work for you. That's exactly what I've done at ManyFlow AI. So the last thing before we jump into these two workflows is going to be one concept that is absolutely crucial for you to understand. This is basically 90% of automation. It is this one concept that you must absolutely understand. And once you understand this, basically the rest of automation is very simple. And that concept is APIs. That stands for Application Programming Interface. And that is basically how data and apps communicate with each other. There's API requests, there's API calls, and that is basically sending a batch of data to another program, to another app, or perhaps requesting a certain type of data from an app. So APIs is, like I said, probably 90% of automation. That's all we're doing. We're sending APIs everywhere and we're manipulating the data and formatting it into one seamless workflow. But you'll get a much better understanding of how these APIs actually work when we're building out our workflow. So what I'm going to do is actually just jump into Make.com right now. We're going to start with our first workflow. So I've just created a blank scenario here. You just go to Make.com, log in, make a free account, and then you can just create a new scenario and you'll have this exact screen. So I'm going to go ahead and actually name this. I'm going to call it like YouTube automation. And then I'm going to build this from scratch. And then the only things I'm going to be copy and pasting are just some prompts so we don't waste too much time writing out full prompts. But everything else is going to be built entirely from scratch. So we're going to click on this plus sign here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an HTTP request. So we're already going to be starting with an API call. So we're actually going to be making a API call to Firecrawl. This is a very popular platform people use to scrape websites. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make an account in Firecrawl, just log in as well, and we're going to be using the Firecrawl API. So first off, we're going to do right here, we're going to do our HTTP request. This is to make our API. We're going to do make a request. And then here we're going to be prompted with these options. So we have our URL, which is the API endpoint. It's like, where are we sending the data? Where are we getting the data? It's going to be that endpoint. We have the API method. So what I want to do is just scrape my website. That's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to be creating I'm going to have AI summarize my website and create a document from there. It's going to be a very basic automation just to get you started and be building your first automation that way. So what we want to do is click on the documentation here. Click on docs, and then here is the API documentation. So this is everything, how to use their APIs, how to use anything Firecrawl API related. But we're going to do something very simple. So we're going to scroll down to scrape, and then we're going to have prompted this information. We'll scroll down a little bit, and then we want to click on curl here. This is all the information needed for us to actually create the API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down. We can see that the method is post. So if I go back to make method, I'm going to change it to post. The URL is going to be, go back to Firecrawl, it's going to be this URL here. We're going to copy that and then paste it right into our endpoint. And then we're going to add some headers here. And the headers, there's going to be two headers. That's what the H stands for over here. We have content type application/JSON, and then you have authorization bear your API key. So a lot of times when you create APIs, you're going to have an authentication. So you're always going to have like an access token or an API key. In this situation, it's a API key, and we actually type in bear. What I'm going to do is actually ignore the content type application/JSON. I'll show you why. I'm going to start with the authorization bear your API key. So we're going to go here. We're going to add our header. We're going to call this authorization. And then we're going to type in bearer and then add a space. Go to Firecrawl. And then what you want to do is go to your API keys and just create one here. I'm going to copy my key right here. I'm going to paste it in right after my space on bearer. And then I am going to ignore the other header because here I have a body type dropdown, and I can select raw, which adds another drop-down, and I can select it here, application/JSON. Perfect. And now our request content. What are we going to be sending out here? So we're going to go back to the documentation, and we can see it right here. So we're going to copy this JSON here, and we're just going to paste this in. Paste it in right here. And we want to change this website here, right? That's the URL. So we want to change that, what we're going to be scraping. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my website. I'm going to grab the URL. I'm going to go to, put it right here. And then I'm going to click on save. And what I'm going to do is right click this and then run this module only. So right now it's making the call. And this is our data. So we have the input data here. There's a bunch of stuff that you don't really need to understand, but what you really want to look for is the output. When we click on data, we can see that we have all of my website entirely scraped. All of this. This is my front page, but I'm just keeping it simple for this video, but there are a lot more things that we can do with Firecrawl. There's a bunch more options. So right now we're just scraping my page, and that's all we're doing. So now that we have my website all scraped inside of this one module, we're actually going to feed this into an AI. And actually, if we go back to our HTTP request, we can see that the data here is very messy. So if I were to actually parse this JSON, because that's what it came into JSON. If I were to do a parse JSON, we could actually feed in the data. So I'm just going to click on this. I'm going to parse it. So now if I run this, I'm going to run anyway, you're going to see that it looks a little bit different. So if I click on here, we have data, but now we have actually 3 different sets of data. We have markdown, metadata, and HTML. Here it doesn't show it because it's all in one JSON string, right? We can't actually see it unless you look for it specifically. But here, because I parsed the JSON, we can organize it a little bit more. We have Markdown, which is my website in Markdown. Markdown, what that is essentially, these are like headers. If you see asterisks, those are bold text. So this is what Markdown formatting is. I can also see it in the metadata. I don't really care about metadata. And then I can see my website in HTML, which is, again, my website script, but in HTML. So that's a cool little thing we could do, is just parse the JSON just to kind of organize it more. So I'm going to keep it like this because I don't want to feed I don't want to feed that data to AI twice. I don't want to feed it in HTML and in Markdown. I just want to feed it in one version of it. So I'm going to keep the parse JSON. Next, what we're going to do is an OpenAI module. So now we're going to be using the OpenAI API, and we're using the completions API. So we want to look for completion. We have create a completion right here. That's basically just messaging ChatGPT once. That is what we're doing. But we're accessing that via an API. So we're not accessing it in ChatGPT, in the OpenAI or ChatGPT interface. We're accessing it through make. So we're going to create a completion. Here you're just going to want to make a connection with OpenAI. You basically just grab the OpenAI API key, set it up, and then you can log in with your credentials that way. And I do want to mention that these two workflows that we're going to be building is going to be available in my Skool community down below. It's a free Skool community. It's going to be in my description, so check it out, join, and you can be able to download these templates and work alongside with me, or just have them and you can tweak them the way you want. So that's going to be in the description down below. So next I'm going to do is pick a model. I'm going to be using, let's just use 4.0. I'm going to type in 4.0. I'm going to do GPT 4.0. And then here it's telling me messages. We're going to add our prompt here. So I'm going to do a user prompt. And then I'm going to paste in my prompt here, right here. I gave it a task, create a clean HTML summary of the company based on the input, instructions, output clean valid HTML only, do not wrap the HTML in triple backticks. So I gave it some HTML instructions here, just so we can make sure that the next module, which is going to be creating the document, doesn't accidentally not render it. We want to make sure that it renders. So that's why I'm giving it all these little extra information here, just so it renders accordingly. And then my input, what are we going to be giving AI? Well, I'm going to be giving it data here. Actually, I don't want to give it data. I want to give it the JSON output. So I'm just going to give it the Markdown version. So we don't have to provide HTML, metadata, all this stuff. We're not going to provide it all that. We're just going to give, so right here we can see we give all of that in one string. But because we broke it down, I'm just going to give it Markdown. And I'm going to save this. We don't have to play around with the rest of these other settings down here. They're pretty unnecessary. They're advanced settings, so we don't need to do this for this case. But what maybe we could do is maybe add more tokens here. Just give our output a little bit longer, have a larger output. And then, yep, we're going to save that. I'm going to run it one more time here. It's making the call. It's going to parse the JSON, and now it's creating our OpenAI response. And then we can check our response. We're going to go to result here, and we could see the HTML that it outputted for us. So it gave us a summary, right? That was the whole point of this OpenAI module, was for it to summarize all of that. We could see here, create a clean HTML summary, because I didn't want to have the entire website content on my document. So we just want a nice summary. And now let's actually put this in a Google Doc. So now we're going to use the Google Doc API. Type in Google Docs. We're going to look for create a document, and it's going to be this one. Create a new Google document by adding the content of HTML format. That's why I had AI create HTML. Click on that. Here we're going to log in again and make a connection. This one's rather easy. You just sign up with Google. Here we're just going to name our document. I'll just call it, for example, summary. This is hard-coded, so this won't change. It'll always have the same title. And the content, I'm going to look for my result from OpenAI, and I'm going to put it in right here. And then where do we actually want this to be stored? I'm going to go to my drive, and I'm going to select a folder that I have, and we'll just call it this one, PDFs. And then I'm going to click on Save. So now, when I run this, if I go to my drive, shortly we're going to see the actual document populate in my folder. And here we just got it. We called it summary. That was what I called it. If I click on this document, we could see that it formatted it perfectly. It's got headers, it's bold, it's got bullet points, it has links as well. It basically summarized my website perfectly here. And so just like that, we've built our first automation. All we would have to do now is change the API. We would change the website here, and now on autopilot, anytime you put in a website, it'll create that document with a summary, just like that. Now this is a very basic automation, but you can imagine that when you connect this with 30 more modules and connect it to a bunch of different integrations, this becomes absolutely super powerful. So now we're going to be jumping into N8N. We're going to be building a very similar workflow. This is going to be very similar to make.com. You just sign up, make an account, and you have a free trial for, I believe, a week. So you could be building this out entirely for free as well. Now you can see that the canvas, this blank canvas, looks very similar to make.com, but it's quite different when you actually use this. This platform is a lot more developer heavy. So if you're really learning to getting into automation, I would highly advise that you learn make.com first. Once you kind of understand make.com better, I would then switch over to N8N to get the hang of it and build more complex automations. So we're going to be building, the first part. It's going to be very similar. We're going to click on here. We're going to do an HTTP request again. And if I just go back to make, I'm just going to copy exactly what I had. So we're going to do post. I'm going to grab the URL from make, which is going to be this one here. And I copy that. Go to N8N. Paste it in. Now you can see that this node looks a little bit different than make.com's, but it works exactly the same. We're going to go to send headers. Here I'm going to do authorization. I'm going to do bearer and then space and then get my API key again. Go back, paste it in. For send body, we're going to go ahead and do JSON. Here we're going to do using JSON. We're going to go back to make. We're going to grab that exact request, paste it in here. Make sure there's no extra spaces and things like that because sometimes it messes up. And then we're going to go to add a parameter here. We're actually going to write it out this time. We're going to do content type /JSON. And we're going to test the step here. Let's see what happens. And we can see that the node successfully ran. And this is exactly the same content that we get from make.com. And then in N8N, we can actually have 3 different viewing options here. We have schema, JTable, and JSON. So usually what you'll want to work with is probably schema because these are a lot easier to map out. It looks very similar to make, or you could just go to the raw JSON and see it that way. So we're going to keep it on schema. And what I'm going to do is actually click on this button up here and I'm going to pin this data. So that means every time I add nodes, I don't have to rerun this. It'll just be already stayed inside of this node. It's pinned, so we don't have to rerun this ever. Perfect. So next what I'm going to do is add an OpenAI module. It's going to be the very same thing. We're going to have this be summarized. So we just type in OpenAI. We're going to look for message a model. It's going to be this one right here. And then here, we're going to set up our credentials again, just like we did with make.com. Our operation is message a model. And as you can see, we pin the data. So now we have it on the left side here as our previous node. So that's very nice. We can just automatically drag and drop from here. I'm going to pick a model here. I'm going to do, we'll just do GPT-4o latest. And then I'm going to paste in this prompt that I have. There we go. I'm going to expand this. And this prompt is analyze the input and return a structured summary of the company. So this one's a little bit different. What I'm doing is I'm asking it to output it in JSON. And I want different types of keys. I want it to be more split out this time. I want the company name. I want the actual summary. I want the business type, the location, and the contact info. And then for input, I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to grab the markdown, but I also have access to the HTML, just like we did with make.com. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab the markdown, paste it in here, and I'm going to run this step as well. So I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to test the step. Actually, I did make a mistake. What we want to do before we do that, we want to output content as JSON. So we want to make sure to put that on. So see how, look at the response here. We just have one thing of content and then our response. But now if I run it again, you're going to see that it's going to be split out. So let's see how this looks. Here we can see the difference, right? We have the summary now. We have company name, business type, location, contact info. It split all that into JSON. So that in N8N is very, very powerful because we can map it out much easier. So perfect, we're going to leave it like that. The next step here is going to be actually adding this to a Google Sheet. We're not going to do a Google Doc, we're going to do a Google Sheet. We're just going to switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to look for Sheets. I'm going to do append, that's the one we're looking for, append row in Sheet. I'm going to choose from my list here. I already have a spreadsheet active. It's called N8N AI Automation. And then I have the tab, so sheet 1. And then once I select that, it's going to show me all of my columns. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Google Sheet here. which is right here, right? Just company name, summary, business type, location, contact info. That is exactly what I had my JSON keys as. So we're going to be mapping out each piece of data into Google Sheets here. So let's go back to N8N, and then I'm going to go to company name. I'm going to grab a company name here. Going to do for summary, same thing. We're just going to place all of these in here. And this isn't like make.com. You can't just click it. You actually have to drag it. So it's just a little difference that N8N has that make doesn't. Business type, location, drop it here. Oops, I didn't mean to delete that. I did not mean to delete that, so I can just add column to send. We'll just add location back here. There we go. Go here, drag location, and then contact info, same thing. And then we can look for any other options. We don't want to cell format. We don't really care about that. So we'll just leave it as is. And then I'm going to test the step as well. And then we'll see the output. Okay, it outputted that. We go to check our sheets. And now we can see that it got the company name, summary, business type, location. Perfect. And now the last step is maybe we want to send this information out to a coworker, to a team member. Let's just run an email after this. But before we send it as an email, we're going to add another AI step to actually write the email ourselves. So I'm going to do OpenAI again. We want to message a model. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did earlier. GPT-4o latest. I'm going to paste in this prompt. Paste it in. And then let's see what I asked it here. I'm saying you're an expert at writing professional emails and act as a thoughtful corporate employee. Write in natural human tone, not robotic. The task is to analyze the input and return a structured summary of the company. Here I'm also asking it to return in JSON because actually I want the subject to be outlined so I can map the subject into the email. So write a short professional email to a coworker letting them know you found information on, and that's the company name. So I'm going to remap that just to make sure everything's looking good. So we're going to go back to here. We can grab it from Google Sheets. We can grab it from OpenAI. It doesn't really matter. We're going to have the same output anyways. So I'll just grab it from Sheets. I'm going to drag it right here. So also a nice thing with N8N is if you go to the result tab here, you can see what the variable is actually outputting. So right here we can see if that's correct. Letting them know you found information on ManyFlow AI. Here we're saying summarize what the company does clearly and completely. Use 2 to 3 paragraphs, proper line breaks between them, avoid long sentences or large text blocks, okay? And then our OpenAI summary, that seems to be good. We're grabbing it from OpenAI directly. And then we're gonna do that last step again. We're gonna make sure to output content as JSON. I'm gonna test this step again. Here we can see our email. Again, we have content and then the subject and the email itself. So now it's going to be very easy to map it out. So let's go ahead and send the email by using the Gmail API. Send message. Here we're going to do 2. So I'm going to put in my email here. I'll just send it to myself. The subject is going to be the subject that AI wrote for us. And then the email type, we'll just do text, keep it simple, because I didn't ask my AI step to write it in HTML. I have to write it in text. And then we just drag the email here. And we're going to go ahead and just run the entire workflow now. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to unpin the data. Now I'm going to run the entire workflow, test workflow. We're going to check our sheets here. It's going to be updated in just a sec here. Here we can see it. Obviously, it's a very similar row here, right? Because it's the same website, but you can see it's slightly different. Here, the contact form came in differently. And then we're going to check our email. And this is the email that I just got. Hey, hi, coworker's name, right? I didn't give that any context, so that's normal. I found some solid information on ManyFlow AI that might be helpful for our upcoming project. ManyFlow AI focuses on integrating artificial intelligence, right? Just gave me a summary of my website. So now every time I give my workflow a website, could be any website, it'll scrape it, get that email sent instantly, summarized, and then sent to whoever needs to be sent to. And of course, we can add on to this prompt. We can make it much more specific. Right here in my email, it did say it might help with our upcoming project. So maybe if you are working on a project, you can mention it in the prompt and then go from there. Now you'll notice here at the bottom, it says this email was sent automatically with N8N. So we can actually go ahead and remove that. if I go back to N8N, we're going to click on our Gmail module, and we're going to scroll down to Add Option, and I'm going to go for Append N8N Attribution, and then I'm just going to turn this off. So now I'm going to run this again, but this time let's just do a different website. Let's look up a random, for example, marketing agency. Let's just grab one here that shows up. We'll just do, we'll do this one here. I have no idea who these people are, what this company is. It's a marketing agency, I think. Just copy the website. I don't know anything about this. I don't want to read through all this. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that into my API request here. Scroll down to our body, delete my website here, paste this in, and now I'm going to run the entire workflow. Go ahead and check our sheets. Here it gave us the company name, the quick summary, the business type. It's an integrated marketing and communications agency, location, global, headquartered in the US, and here is their contact information if I want to reach out. And I just got an email, so let's check what the email said. Here we could see, hi coworker's name. I looked into Fin Partners and I think you'll find their work pretty impressive. They're a fast-growing, globally recognized marketing and communications agency. They offer a full range of services, everything from advertising and digital marketing, whatever. So without reading a word from this website, I just got a quick email with a quick summary. Boom, read it in 2 minutes, and I already know what this company does. And this was done in like 10 seconds. So thanks for making it to the end of the video. This was really a beginner's guide on automation. Don't forget to check out the free Skool community down below where you can download these 2 workflows that we built out in case you don't want to write out the prompts or maybe something's not working with your APIs. Just make sure to download the template, import it into your Make.com or N8N workflow, and then be able to tweak it from there. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you guys want to do, and I will see you guys all in the next video.